3 Little House on the Prairie episodes fans swear were banned. Here's what's actually true. Little House on the Prairie is beloved for its nostalgic portrayal of pioneer life, but ask around online and you'll find a persistent rumor that a handful of episodes were quietly banned, pulled from syndication, and scrubbed from streaming because of content that clashes with today's standards. 3 titles come up again and again: The Ghost, The Election, and The Name of War. So are they actually banned? Let's dig into where this claim comes from, what's really been documented, and why the story keeps spreading anyway. Where the ban claim comes from. Search Little House on the Prairie ban episodes and you'll land on dozens of listicles and video essays repeating the same 3 titles, often word for word. What's harder to find is an actual network memo, a streaming platform's content policy, or a news report confirming any of them were pulled. That's worth pausing on, because the claim has real staying power despite that gap. What is documented is different, and in some ways more interesting. The Little House books, not the show, have faced real challenges. In 1993, both a Louisiana school district and a South Dakota school challenged Little House on the Prairie over passages involving Native Americans. Neither challenge succeeded in getting the book removed, but they were real, recorded events. Separately, the television series picked up an odd reputation abroad. Finland gave the show an 18+ home video rating, reportedly due to a licensing classification mix-up rather than the content itself, and it's still fondly rebroadcast there today. Neither of those stories involves specific banned episodes. So where did The Ghost, The Election, and The Name of War come from? Most likely, they're a mix of real episodes that dealt with heavy themes, filtered through years of secondhand retellings, clickbait aggregation, and not much fact-checking. That doesn't mean the underlying discomfort people feel watching them is fake, it just means banned is probably the wrong word. With that context, let's look at what people actually claim about each episode, and how much of it holds up. Episode 1, The Ghost. The Ghost, which aired during the show's 5th season, is the episode most frequently cited as too controversial to air today. The rumor holds that a storyline involving a character troubled by a Native American spirit leans on stereotypical, spooky depictions of indigenous spirituality, framing beliefs as something eerie rather than treating them with any depth or respect. As the claim goes, this supposedly triggered viewer complaints strong enough that networks quietly dropped it from rerun rotations in streaming libraries. It's true that plenty of 1970s television, including shows aimed at families, leaned on shorthand and cliches when depicting Native American culture. That's a well-documented pattern across the era, not specific to this one episode. It's also true that if this episode does lean into spooky indigenous spirit tropes, that's a fair thing to critique on its own merits. What isn't backed up by anything concrete is the claim that any network or platform formally pulled it. As far as documentation goes, the episode appears in standard episode guides without any special banned or restricted designation. This is a useful pattern to notice. A real, fair critique of outdated storytelling gets repeated so often, in videos and articles that echo each other, that it eventually gets reported as an official ban even when nobody can point to who banned it or when. Episode 2, The Election. The Election, from the show's 6th season, centers on Mr. Edwards running for town office, with a plot that touches on voter manipulation and the political climate of the era. The rumor here claims the episode trivializes racial tension by playing serious issues like disenfranchisement for comic relief, and that this tonal mismatch got it quietly excluded from rerun schedules and streaming platforms. Again, there's a real conversation worth having about how 1970s TV often handled political and racial themes with a lighter touch than the subject matter deserved. That critique shows up across the era's programming, not just this one storyline. But there's no verifiable record of The Election being removed anywhere specifically because of that. It shows up in the same episode lists as everything else. What's notable is how the claim has evolved online. Some retellings frame the removal as being about racial stereotyping, others focus on the harmless prank framing of political corruption, details shifting slightly from one version of the story to the next, which is often a sign of a claim spreading through repetition rather than through any single documented source. Episode 3, The Name of War. The Name of War is the one most often described as the most sensitive of the 3. It follows a character named Flaming Eagle navigating identity between native traditions and settler life, and it's frequently flagged for using non-native actors to play Native American characters, a casting practice that was, unfortunately, common across 1970s and 80s television and is now widely and legitimately criticized. Critics online also describe the storyline as leaning on the noble savage trope, where indigenous characters are portrayed as tragic figures destined for a sorrowful ending. The casting critique is fair and consistent with broader, well-documented industry practices of the time. That part isn't in dispute. What remains unverified is the specific claim that this episode, out of everything the show produced, was singled out and formally pulled from distribution. No episode guide, network statement, or reporting turns up to confirm it. Put together, all three band claims share a pattern: a plausible-sounding critique about outdated 1970s storytelling, attached to a specific episode title, repeated across enough websites that it starts to feel like established fact without anyone actually citing where the ban happened. It's worth asking why these three titles specifically became the ones people point to, out of the roughly 200 episodes the series produced across 9 seasons. Part of the answer is probably just that they deal openly with race and identity, which makes them stand out from the show's usual fare of family hardship and small-town drama. A rumor needs a hook, and the one about the scary Native American spirit or the one with the corrupt election are memorable enough to travel. Compare that to genuinely well-documented Little House episodes that dealt with dark material like the death of an infant in The Lord is My Shepherd, or Mary Ingalls' real-life blindness storyline, which aired without controversy and are openly available today, warts and all, because nobody built a viral rumor around them. The real historical context. None of this means the underlying discomfort is manufactured. Television in the 1970s operated under genuinely different norms. Cultural consultation with indigenous advisors was essentially non-existent in mainstream production. Writers often worked from second-hand or outdated sources. Broadcast standards favored broad, easily digestible portrayals over nuanced ones, largely because the industry was built to appeal to a wide, largely white, middle-class audience without challenging them too directly. That combination reliably produced flattened, stereotyped portrayals of Native American and Black characters across many shows of the era, not uniquely in Little House on the Prairie. So it's entirely reasonable for modern viewers to watch certain episodes and feel that something's off. That reaction doesn't require an official ban to be legitimate, it's simply what happens when older media meets a more informed, more accountable present. The Netflix reboot takes a different approach. That gap between then and now is exactly what Netflix's 2026 reboot seems designed to address. The 8-episode first season, which premiered in July 2026, was filmed in Winnipeg and takes a deliberately different approach to Indigenous representation than the original series did. Showrunner Rebecca Sonnenschein and executive producer Trip Friendly, whose father produced the original 1970s show, made incorporating the Osage perspective a central priority rather than an afterthought. Ojibwe actor Miigwech Fairbrother, who plays William Mitchell, an Osage family man serving as a bridge between the indigenous community and the settlers, has said the goal was an inclusive retelling that avoids continuing the history of erasing indigenous peoples from these stories. Cree actor Alyssa Wapanatok, who plays White Sun, has emphasized how having cultural consultants and indigenous directors on set changed the depiction, moving her character and others away from a single type and toward being shown as full people with families of their own, much like the Ingalls. The reboot goes further than the original ever did by directly naming the colonial context. The Ingalls family settles on Osage Nation territory while the U.S. government is still negotiating a land treaty, meaning they're effectively squatters on land that isn't theirs to claim. That's a direct response to decades of criticism aimed at both Wilder's books and the original series for centering the settler narrative without acknowledging whose land it actually was. The new version hasn't escaped controversy of its own. Some commentators dismissed it as woke before it even aired, while others have argued it swings too far the other way, softening frontier tensions to the point of feeling emotionally dishonest. That back and forth is really just the same debate the banned episode's rumor taps into, playing out in real time with an actual, documented show instead of an urban legend. The real takeaway. The pull of the banned episode's story makes sense. It offers a tidy, dramatic explanation, official censorship, for a more complicated, less satisfying truth, that a beloved show made choices reflecting its era's blind spots, and that some of those choices haven't aged well. No ban required for that to be true. If there's a genuine lesson in all this, it's less about which episodes were supposedly banned and more about how these claims spread in the first place, repeated confidently enough, often enough, that somebody said so starts to feel like a documented fact. That's worth keeping in mind well beyond this one show, since the same pattern shows up constantly around older TV and film. A fair critique of dated content quietly hardens into a false claim about formal censorship, and the false version is the one that gets clicks. The real, verifiable stories here, the book challenges, Finland's raiding quirk, and now Netflix's attempt to retell this world with indigenous voices actually in the room are arguably more revealing than the rumor ever was.